Sounds great. Thanks, Ryan. Just to let everyone know, I juggled the connections, and I'm now getting this thing recorded to the cloud for this is the May 7th meeting. So thanks for that, Ryan. Sarah, what's going on with you?
Not much over here on this side. I have decided with a doodle poll that I sent out probably 2 weeks ago to actually not host the discussion because it seems like there's enough going on. So now I'm just, the original idea for the doodle poll was to kind of create an initiative, but there's so many going on. I'm just trying to figure out where my skills are best used. And I think that's in organizing and kind of getting everyone connected to what's going on. So Aaron and Melanie over at 49 SAF and I were talking about potentially making the June all call specifically for youth engagement happening over the summer, and then talking about, you know, how will we develop a marketing strategy around that to get community leaders and ecosystem developers into that call, and then of course, you know, also the people who are organizing youth engagement events and potentially youth themselves to kind of tell us what they actually are looking for and what would be helpful. So I'm starting that project right now, and if anyone has any ideas or feedback, of course, I'm always available. I think you all have my email up by this point in the meeting invitations, so feel free to reach out.
Sounds great. Thanks. Ben, what's going on with you today?
Nothing too exciting. Driving to Palmer to pick up parts. But I just want to make a note to Ryan that if it's ever raining, you guys want to find a place to meet, we could probably do some stuff at the shop in the meantime before you get your Third Avenue thing going. So always keep that in the back of your mind. I'm happy to make that available. But nothing else really going on. Just want to try to join this when I can and stay abreast of what's happening and see if there's places where I can join in and be helpful. So that's about it. Short update for me. I'll kick over to people who are a little more aware of what's actually happening.
Sounds good, Ben. Thanks. Andy, what's up with you?
Well, I'm finally back on Alaskan soil for a few more days, and then I'm off again to North Carolina. And this has been a really crazy week, just with school wrapping up and having to get grades in and having asked my students to do a lot of work for grading at the very end, which I always seem to do. Anyway, I need to learn new strategies. So one of the reasons why I came back this weekend or this week was for the aviation gathering this weekend. And so I'll be out there both days. And I think what I might do is spend some time walking around and just talking to some of the vendors who are, many of them are local.
I just need to make a phone call.
And so I think I'm
is it okay if I call?
Like if you stay in big marketing, it's not a place to pull in and go kind of thing.
I think somebody is erroneously off mute.
Yes. Okay.
Looks like somebody's asking Kai to move, like he's parked in a place he can't be.
Oh no. So anyway, the aviation industry is an area that I have a lot of interest, but I don't have a lot of knowledge at the moment. So I think I just want to spend some time talking to some people and see what kinds of things that they might be seeing as gaps here in Alaska, because aviation is certainly a huge part of who we are here. And I have felt for a long time that that we could probably do more, even more than what we're doing to support this particular industry and all of the, all of the businesses that sort of evolve around the availability of aviation here. So that's kind of where I'm focused. And then I'm going to be jumping on a giant plane again and flying to the East Coast. So lots about the aviation industry this week. So there you go. I'm done.
Great, thanks. Sorry for the interruption, guys. I got kicked out of my spot over here. We've got a completely empty museum parking lot, and they don't want somebody stopped here. So I've had to move myself to another location. Andy, I just wanted to mention regarding the homework. I had a wonderful experience doing peer grading, but I'm always reminded I have to be careful what I ask for when I make assignments. So, Tracy, what's going on with you?
Sorry, just trying to unmute correctly. You know, did a little planting this morning, and actually really looking forward to being in Oregon for the next 9 days. I need some reflective time, and the ocean does beautiful things for my soul. So yeah, nothing exotic and exciting, although I will, to the grading question, I taught a course in Austria a week ago, which was amusing in and of itself, getting up at 3 a.m. to teach the course and doing a combination of pre-recorded sessions. And it's very interesting, having taught in Europe for many, many years, Austrian and German students, most, few Swiss, few Italians. The mindset is different this year because of the year of COVID and the way that they are approaching neuroscience and emotional intelligence and leadership really seems to be changed by the impact of everything we've been through in the last year. So it'd be interesting to see whether that was a spurious event or whether next year I'll see the same thing. So anyway, that's me. I wish I was going on the longer road trip though, Kai. I did about a month last year coming back from Wisconsin up here, and it was really wonderful. So enjoy your trip.
Thanks, I don't think so. Pasquale, good to see you or hear you. What's up with you?
Yeah, I'm here. So this week, pretty busy actually. But when it comes to the group, I've been seeing more and more folks moving up here. Actually, this week, 2 friends that moved out of the state between 2-3 years ago, they reach out, hey, we are going back, and keep in touch, but actually talking about moving back and how were things looking like here. They already have a job, but they are going to be working remotely. So they thought, hey, you know what? Job moved us out of here, and now that we don't have to be here, we want to be back to Alaska. So I was thinking, probably that's a good conversation to have with them about all what made them move back here. And since everybody's, or not everybody, but a lot of people I'm hearing, they're saying that they know people moving back, probably reaching out to them and say, hey, what made you move back to Alaska? Because there must be something that makes somebody move their whole life to a new location, because they either were here before or because they heard something that made them make the decision. So what are those key components? And who knows, maybe we have some opportunities for our next Alaska or some gold nuggets that we didn't even think, because we just got used to see them, that we don't appreciate that that's probably the future, or an important piece within the puzzle of the future.
Sounds good. And Elijah, I think I missed you going around. What's up?
Oh yeah, just I've just still got my ears to the crypto space, pretty heavy, and yeah, also just real interested in sharing and getting involved with other people if anybody's interested in it. Also looking for some more people that are kind of towards the programming end of it. So yeah, if anybody rings a bell, I'd be happy to chat people up or whatever. So yeah.
Sounds good, thanks. So I think, did I miss anybody? I don't think so.
No, I think that's everyone.
Yep, everybody.
Okay. Getting myself reparked here for a second. Let's chat just briefly about the writing contest at this point. I think things are moving along as well as can be at this point. There's some updates that I've shared with some of you, but not all of them. We've gotten some good additional outreach from a number of folks. The meeting that Sarah helped pull together on Monday, I thought got a nice list of actions pulled together. So I'm enthusiastic about where things are going. Sarah or others, thoughts on where we're at and what needs to happen next? I know the main drumbeat at the beginning of this week was 2 more weeks. So I think the next drumbeat for everybody is just to look for follow-up on there's kind of 1 more week. But more on that, Sarah or Tracy?
In terms of promotions, I would say follow up on emails or any DMs you sent. I found a lot more success personally from social media posts than I did with any kind of emails. I don't think any of my emails got responded to. So I might follow up with my initial emails with a direct message if I have their contact, of course. Yes, with the messaging of like 1 more week. Other than that, I think now it's just a matter of figuring out what our next steps are, with a focus on promotion still. But, I know that submissions are coming in because people have told me they've submitted. And so figuring out how we're tracking those, how we're delegating those, probably getting the judges together this week is what I would say. So if you know of anyone who has expressed interest in judging, if you could reach out to them over the weekend. If we could get anyone on the Monday call, that would be helpful. But I know that there's also a generator event happening at the same time as our scheduled Monday writing group meeting. So obviously if they can't because there's like a 2-day notice, then we can talk on Monday about when we want to get the judges together and how. I think that's pretty much it. Anyone else? Tracy?
Sorry, typing and staying muted is a bit of a challenge. Kai, my hat's off to you on how you manage all these things. No, I don't think I have anything else to add. Thank you.
Good. I'm just pulling up here to see if I've got any submissions in the form. We've got a submission form that's linked from the website. I don't recall getting any notices that we've gotten any submissions at this point. Oh, I take that back. We do have the first one in. Wow, okay. So I was just going to say that I wanted to test it to find out if it worked. And it looks like it does work. The only thing I realized I want to change is I need to add remember to go in and modify the form so when people complete it, they'll indicate how they learned about the contest. But at any rate, congratulations to all for the promotion on this. We've got the first one in, and this is somebody who's under 18 who has submitted a poem. Huh. Okay, looking forward to figuring out what we've got in there, and then we'll work on the meeting on Monday. I did also get confirmation that at least Pat Kotak wants to help judge, and we've got a couple other people that have been interested in doing that also, so I'm excited about that. Let's see, I think moving on from the writing contest then, and I know, Sarah, you had mentioned briefly about some of the work that you're doing in terms of the youth outreach and events going on there. I'm wondering if folks have some more ideas or any more thoughts you want to kick around this morning in terms of engagement over the summer. I'm working with Justin Williams with the Civics organization, that's SIVX, and we're starting to talk about trying to create a version of the civics program. It's a national program for civic engagement, and I'm looking at potentially trying to do something in the end of July around that might be a follow-up for the APU meeting that we did, and an opportunity for folks to get engaged in discussing projects. The civics program is kind of a 3-part design. The first part is an engagement in civil discourse and strategic doing and methods of getting involved in civic related projects and initiatives. The second part is a civics focused startup weekend type of event that looks at challenges in the community and how to engage in them using the same tools as a startup weekend. And then the third part is a ongoing program to support ideas that come out of the startup weekend to do that. And so I'm going to be working on that. I'll be curious if others are potentially interested in helping organize that. I'm thinking about exploring the idea of trying to tilt it a little bit towards the Next Alaska type of discussion, and how do we as Alaskans become better engaged in our future in terms of civil discourse and ways of coming together to work on civic related projects, and then how do we actually design projects and nurture those ideas and support the people that are involved in it. So curious in general about thoughts on summer programming, and any thoughts or questions or interest in particular about the civics related project.
The only thing that I thought of as you were speaking about that, especially with the startup weekend thing, was some things that Aaron had mentioned to me, which is that a lot of people, even now, are still talking about how the favorite part of Startup Week of 2019, when we did it in person, was that Startup Weekend event with King Tech. That's echoed still to this day about how that was really cool and exciting. So I guess that relates back to the youth conversation. Civics meaning like community-led stuff, or what is civics in this context?
So, kind of two broad framing of that. One is that I like to think of a model, and you might recall I had a slide maybe in one of the presentations I've done that kind of paints this picture that the civic economy is this broader framework of everything that's going on, from schools to roads to local government to all the social programs that we have. And within the civic economy is the market economy. And it's a model that basically says you can't ignore one or the other, that they both have to be healthy for the other to work. We have to have a market economy, whether it's the past two we've talked about in terms of subsistence and now extraction. That those have to be healthy and vibrant in order to help pay for and create the jobs that make the civic economy possible. And so the market economy, which is kind of the Alaska version 3 flavor of how do we move to a regenerative economy, and how do we look at issues of value added and new industries, that whole market economy focus rests within the civic economy and framework discussion. So that's kind of the macro view of this civics issue, of getting involved in the broader context of the issues we've talked about, whether it's workforce development and education, or whether it's new economic development or new community opportunities. The more specific version is the civics program, which is SIVX, is the when I say it, it sounds like the same civics, but it's actually a different one. And this is a program coming out of Tucson that's been piloted in 19 and then redesigned right now, being relaunched in this new format of those 3 stages. So I think I talked too long on that, but I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did, definitely.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Assuming the civics is a, already piloted created program, then ignore this comment. But, there was a lot of work done with the Ford Foundation with the Start Talking and the Stop Talking work. And all of that was also focused around civil discourse. And it was really geared in so many ways to thinking about, how do we better incorporate Indigenous ways of knowing and Indigenous ways of communication. So it might be worthwhile, if you can go beyond whatever is the program that was piloted in 19, consider that as well.
Yeah, if you could put a note in there, I'd like to follow up on that. I know Justin and I have been working pretty broadly with the Peter Block's work, with the Points of Light Foundation, the other national programs of civil discourse. So this has got a really broad reach nationally in terms of other efforts that have worked at this. But I'm always finding a new one that maybe has emerged we need to look at. And I particularly appreciate your focus on making sure that the Indigenous and Native ways of knowing voice is included in the design of this. And we do have a chance to modify the design, since what's being launched this year is a new version of it that's being updated from what was learned during the pilot. So there is a lot of flexibility to tweak and adapt what's going on. And I'm kind of pulling this ahead. Justin was planning on launching it this fall with a national program for some fellows. And I'm seeing this intersection of what we're doing and trying to explore new ways of engaging Alaskans as maybe a nice fit with the program. And so I'm kind of pulling it ahead, which means we also have a little more flexibility to make some changes to it and play it our own way if we want to. But I am continuing to look for ways to put some framework around what we're talking about and to create some activities that help us reach out beyond our own group and involve others. Other questions, comments, or thoughts, either in general in terms of summer programming or this particular program? Okay, well, I'll keep poking along that. And then Sarah, with the discussion about the all call and that outreach, I look forward to what you learn about that. I'm still kind of interested in having some sort of activity that replaces 1 million cups, which will go through May 26th, and looking at something for the summer. I know Laura Oden has expressed some interest in that, but the time Wednesday morning is potentially a problem for that. And I think one of you had also mentioned that's not a great time for a younger involvement. So that's still on the radar screen at this point as far as options. Okay, anything more on summer and youth involvement at the moment?
Yeah, Kai, I'd like to jump in here.
Yeah.
Seeds has some summer specific programming where we work with youth on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Stellar Secondary School. And then we're also going to be expanding that to the 3rd Avenue site as well. We're looking to try and build in some existing programming that the UAF Cooperative Extension has on, they've put together for food systems, and we're trying to build in like a racial equity piece into that. They've tied that in for some indigenous perspectives and ways of knowing into their food systems and food pathways work that they've already done. But I think that I would love to see more connections to the broader community. Our whole goal is trying to get youth engaged and understand what their place is within their own community. And so having a better sense of what's happening within the civic space and how they can participate, engage, and help do some work there could be a pretty powerful thing. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if this summer is the time, but it's something that I've been kind of noodling over, and I'm certainly interested in exploring more.
Yeah, sounds good. Regarding the high school side of things, do keep in mind, everybody, that Alaska Business Week is going to be run again this summer. I think they've got 2 sessions. And if you know high schoolers that are interested in entrepreneurship and innovation kinds of stuff, that program's in there. It's in the digest the last couple of weeks. The other thing that was, I'm just drawn to mention that I was really excited about is Alaska, for the second time in the last 5 years that I know of, an Alaskan just won the High North Entrepreneur of the Year award, coming out of, Norway or Finland. We're part of a circumpolar group that gets together every year. Piper Foster Wilder won it a few years ago, and Michael Martinez just won it. It was just announced in the last couple of days. And, to me, it's a really important reminder that we've got young people and we've got innovative activities going on here in Alaska that are truly globally world-class quality work. We don't need to feel like we're, waiting to arrive or that we could arrive. We are globally relevant. As I've sometimes spouted off about when I get the chance, between now 2 of the Entrepreneur of the Year award for the Circumpolar High North group, Future Farmers of America, we were #1 in the country a few years ago. The Pandera Shoes was #1 in the country with Kauffman Foundation for 1 million cups. We had the Aquaga won the International Water Challenge competition. we really are doing globally relevant world-class work in this state. And sometimes I just don't know that everybody believes it and is inspired by realizing how much we are doing and how much we're capable of. The article that I shared, I think on my Facebook page, which is the article that was in today's paper about the question of, does America aspire to its potential and its future with regard to the Biden infrastructure plan? I posted that one with basically the question saying that this question of what do we aspire to that the nation is trying to understand, really, if you read that article, it's a direct parallel to the Alaska discussion. You know, do we aspire to something greater than what we are, and are we willing to step out of the bounds of what we've done to see the potential of what we could do? So, I'm sorry, that was kind of a long riff, Ryan, on your update on the Third Avenue. I am curious about Third Avenue, though, in terms of Andy, if you've made some connections there, and also if we've learned anything about what APU might be doing for their HICL program next year, if it can somehow be connected in with this. I know it's on my list to try and catch up with YASO on that question, but Andy, do you know more or have any other thoughts on Third Avenue and what you see from the entrepreneurial interests that we discussed last week?
That darn unmute button. So I don't have anything new. I did respond to the email, the reach out, the intro email that you sent. And I haven't heard anything back yet, but I also have not been pushing it because this week has just been out of my control all week. So, but I do want to follow up with that and continue to try to catch up with everybody on that and learn more about what we can do and what APU can do, so that I can take that to APU. We're transitioning from YASO being our institute director to a new institute director at the end of June. So new institute director takes over in July. And I'm going to have to get her warmed up to the idea of doing this. I think she would be interested in it, but being a new institute director, her learning curve, she's at the bottom of her learning curve. So except for the fact that she's been at the university for a very long time.
Well, do tell. Who is the new institute director?
Beverly.
Oh, okay. We can get Beverly. Okay, that's easy.
That was going to be my guess, was Beverly. So her learning curve isn't that great.
Yeah, I mean, I know she's been involved. She's been at the university for a long time, and she's been involved with various aspects. She knows what she's doing. It's just there's been some things going on within the institute that are, and we're up for reaccreditation this year, so she's got a lot on her plate, just involving that piece. So lots going on there. So what I want to do is try to present it to her in the most complete format, so that it's more of a this is an opportunity for us, rather than, do you think this is a good opportunity for us?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, Tracy and I have both worked with Beverly extensively over Tracy many more years than I have, but we both have good relationships there and have worked with her a lot. So that's a good thing. We can move that along.
Yeah, I'm excited about the transition. I think she'll bring some new energy. I know she has a lot of her own thoughts and ideas that she would like to bring to the Institute. So I'm excited about that. I was happy that she got selected for that. But that's kind of where we're at. So, you know, I would be down the totem pole a little bit. But so, you know, it's something I think I'll work on over the summer and try to, you know, create a more solid idea of what the Third Avenue site vision is and figure out how APU can be a strong piece of that. And I mean, I see my undergraduate students were frustrated, quite frankly, that we had so little time to cover so much material. I mean, when I got the feedback from them, everybody had, I wish we had done this. I wish we had done this. And, you know, when you combine it all together, it's a whole nother 7-week course that they wish they had gotten. And so I really see an interest and a need that for students to continue developing their understanding of entrepreneurship and how they can contribute to the Alaskan economy. I mean, I've got a number of my students are not in Anchorage. They live in villages, and they have very good business ideas that they would like to pursue, but need more support than what they're getting just through their university connection. So,
Andy, have you had a chance to talk with Cy Two Alps at all? You know, he and I had a chance to meet earlier this week and learn a little bit more about the ANTHC lab space that he's working on, learn a little bit about what we're doing at Seeds of Change, and then explore the Third Avenue space some. But, you know, a network or a web of connections are kind of starting to show up for that space. And so I would encourage you to either reach out to him, or, you know, perhaps I could help make a connection there, or you and I could talk a little bit more offline about what some of those opportunities are, because I think there's a real strong connection. That Third Avenue space, because of the heritage of it being the Alaska Native Hospital site, has a strong Indigenous connection there, and it needs to be reimagined for what that site stands for. It needs a new narrative. And when we look at the work that's happening in our community and the innovation that we want to happen, having a central hub to practice that innovation and then share that innovation out to the rural spokes is a pretty appealing process to be able to test out and model some of the different entrepreneurial techniques, some of the different regenerative techniques, sustainability techniques. And so in a lot of ways that could become a working lab space for students and for the community. And so, you know, part of why I think that it could be a good spot to start working on some of the civic exploration is because purely operating in that space is going to help other people to reframe what that space is about. And so as we start to explore that, then it's no longer this huge mental leap. It's just, you know, a few small steps for us to what could happen there.
Yep. And, you know, I think the other thing that I got out of this particular class is that the concept of an entrepreneurial ecosystem is still, even though we had a full lecture on it, and well, Erin came in and did a fabulous presentation on it, it's still not a well understood concept even within my class. So I think maybe that's something we just as a team can work on helping people understand what the ecosystem, what we're talking about when we talk about an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that, you know, having a venue to do that is, you know, a great start. You know, start getting the language out there and teaching people what words to use.
And I just offer, Andy, you know, in addition to the language, it's also just bringing visibility to what is even there. I know Margot Fliss and I are starting an effort to try and continue the discussion about an Alaska Innovation Coalition. And what we're, you know, pressing is the fact that nobody even knows what startups we have in the state and what they're doing. Nobody even has a good idea of what all of the ecosystem components and programs are and what they're doing, what their outcomes are. And more specifically, how do they align with one another? If somebody does generator program, does that mean they're ready for Launch Alaska? Or if they do the Step Up program from ACLT, does that mean they're ready to go into generator, or are they past generator? You know, nobody knows how this framework and ecosystem works, and nobody is bringing these players together to talk about how to link and align what each program is doing. And it's not to change what they're doing or to do anything, but just to know how they plug together. And I bring this around to what you and Ryan are talking about, which is that I'd like to offer that part of strengthening this next Alaska framework is being able to build the framework so people can see how the pieces all fit, and to know what the options are as folks come in at the early stages and what their next steps might be and what the options are for that, so that we can map out something like the activities at Third Avenue to see what feeds into it. And for folks that go through what's offered at Third Avenue, what do they then connect up to? What are the next steps that are available to them? And through that, then to identify gaps that may exist in the ecosystem to help fill it in. So this Alaska Innovation Coalition approach of trying to bring all these key players together to identify what's going on, what the fabric is, will hopefully bring more clarity to what you're talking about, Andy, in terms of, you know, what's the startup community, what's the entrepreneurial ecosystem, what's the innovation ecosystem, you know, all the different layers of the onion that begin to go not only to a local Main Street startup, but a scalable startup, and then to open innovation collaborations with existing businesses that, you know, link and leverage those opportunities to do something even better, where 1 + 1 is now 3 in terms of the really powerful opportunities we can create. So I'll share with everybody some more information on that coalition discussion and what's going on there. I'm still looking for a home for that effort. And right now, you know, unless something comes along and beats me upside the head, it may be an AKV3 thing down the road, that fostering that conversation amongst all the players could be something that, you know, that we need to step into that space. I'm still kind of watching what Aaron 49th SAF does. They kind of are in the middle space of mostly Anchorage-ish focus, but they're trying to play statewide now. Their all-call program, $10 lunch, and programs like that provide the opportunity to be a bit more of that coalition if they wanted to advance the discussion in terms of linking and aligning programs.
Do we know any database gurus?
Yeah, go Ben.
Hey, actually, I can say I do actually know a database guru who's new to Alaska and is trying to get plugged into the community. So I could help with that. I just wanted to jump in, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but man, that really resonates for me. And I think I would add that it's beyond neutrality, where it's just this organization. I think often we see competition between resources and walled gardens for people that shouldn't even be competing and are actually have the same goal, but there's some strange dynamic there. If this kernelizes a little bit, or I can help be the impetus towards kernelizing that, that's something I'd love to work on. That's a personal passion and pain point for me. So please keep me in mind as that goes. I think that's something I could really bite into and would be really meaningful work. So I just wanted to jump in with that real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I'll remember to send you the coalition presentation I did for the summit, and then if you and I can touch bases on the database guy, I do have a specific opportunity to help build something to start some of that. So I'll try and follow up with you on both of those ideas and keep you looped in. Thanks for your interest. I'm sorry, Andy, you got tangled up in that three-way there. What were you going to say?
Nothing. You guys figured out what I was saying. So this all needs to go into a database that can be searchable.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, there's always the logistics of how to host it and where to host it. And, you know, that costs money.
Yeah.
But
The big challenge is that there's nobody willing to fund this effort so far. I mean, there's lots of systems out there. Harness is one we've looked at. There's another one, was it Real Life or something like that? There are some really good ecosystem platforms out there for, you know, creating databases of startups, angels, entrepreneurs, programs, the whole 9 yards out there. but it requires, a commitment of staff time and money. And so far, our state doesn't want to put any money into this kind of platform ecosystem building. So I'm interested in kind of bootstrapping it a little bit longer and hopefully creating some value. I had a great conversation with Andrew Brown, who's the director of the Calgary Innovation Coalition, and picked his brain on how did they make it work and what was kind of the secret sauce of bringing people together. And, I could go into a long dive, which I won't right now, but one of the key things he told me about was that, it had to be guided and brought together, with a group that people trusted in terms of the motivations not being questioned. And the second was, and this to me was really powerful, was that you had to be able to capture data about the ecosystem, the metrics, so you could see the aggregated impact of what was going on. As long as everybody has all their separate programs, you never realize how powerful the work is. And what they did, and here was the secret sauce, was they developed a way to let everybody capture and share their metrics, and they allowed everyone to double dip on it. So that anybody that wanted to have some connection to a successful startup, it was okay if everybody took credit for anybody's success in the program, and to recognize that it is a village. Everybody has their own little flap of the butterfly wings that helps things move along. So rather than dividing up and siloing all the metrics and the successes and trying to do that, let everyone take credit for everything. But on the other hand, aggregate the results so that policymakers and politicians and the folks that are making decisions on program investments can see the real impact of what is happening. And I think that's the case in Alaska. I think folks are always surprised when I tell them, 89% of all of our new jobs are created by, businesses less than 5 years old each year. They don't realize it really is happening already. We just need to bring visibility to it. So sorry, I went off the deep end again. That happens. Let's see. I want to touch on one last thing regarding social media and posts and blogs and emails. But before I do that, I want to see, are there any other loose ends on this discussion for the moment before we move on? And I want to wrap up and kind of bring things back to Sarah and some of the outreach communication efforts. Any other follow-up on this discussion first?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. I think that the digital space is really could really be an asset for this. I liked, a few conferences and things that I've been to, where there's different subject tables and people can just show up. I think some kind of regularity of that, where people that are interested in the space could just show up and connect and, maybe have a little bios or little tags or something, what your interests are or skill sets. I think that a lot of this is about just people showing up and meeting each other and talking and sharing about their ideas, and different platforms, also Telegram or some of these other things. I think just kind of repetitiveness and just literally building the infrastructure and the connections between all the people that are involved in different ways.
That's great. And, Elijah, as with all things in this effort, if you're interested and see a vision for how that might happen, please step into that space and see what you can work out, grab support and others, if you want to do a brainstorming session or something like that. But this is all about just creating space to talk about some of these opportunities and then just kind of lurching forward into, trying some stuff out and iterating on it. So I appreciate that.
Great. Yep. I'll see what I can come up with. Thanks.
Cool. So I wanted to wrap up here and come full circle. We've got a lot of good communications going out. I think just some exceptional work that Sarah's helped lead and organize in there. The latest blog post is out there. Hopefully you've read it and maybe shared it with some friends out there, as well as some of the social media here. But I've got kind of a convoluted question asked on here. Right now, Sarah has basically single-handedly, kind of got a workflow developed. She's, they are organizing the ideas that could be used, are moving them into editing, moving them into quality and the posting and the whole lives. And I'd like to, I don't know where I want to go with this again. What I'm basically trying to say is we need to get more people involved if we can in submitting some of the ideas, potentially helping with some of the editing and some of the feedback, so that we've got more capacity here, and it doesn't rely just on Sarah to kind of move this stuff along. So let me turn it over to Sarah now, though, to defend herself or to more clearly articulate kind of where you're at, what help you would like, where folks could help, and move it along. And I'll just saying one of the areas that I really feel like I need to strengthen is developing the newsletter content, because there are some folks that are looking for the newsletters to come out, and that's been kind of a lower tier activity. But let me stop now and turn it over to Sarah for some thoughts and perspective and asks.
Yeah, I think with any content strategy, everything starts at the piece that takes the longest. So for us, that would be the blog post. The blog post kind of is what catalyzes everything else to happen. So like from the blog post, we can write a newsletter that kind of plugs the blog post. We can write a few social posts, for a variety of channels. And then, in any other capacity, we can create other stuff as well, including like the, flyers and one pagers and emails that we created last week. Or this past week. So I guess I don't know what I need. Probably, yeah, more ideas, like more direction with the blog. So far, we've just sort of been following the content idea framework that was developed months ago at this point. And so sort of figuring out like what needs to be on the blog, what would benefit us most to be on the blog. So either at like a Google search engine optimization standpoint, or just what's pressing, what we're doing, if we want to put PR on there, like there's a lot of directions we could take it. And so, coming to a consensus as a team, or, maybe people, taking the reins on writing or developing pieces. I think I work best at like the strategic level and editing as well. So if others are willing to draft stuff, I can, redline it and tear it apart for you. Or, do whatever we think is necessary for moving forward. So.
Great. I'd like to ask two things following up on that. One is, could you share the Trello content board link in the chat for folks? So, and that's for everybody, if you would get a chance to grab that link and look at it, just to be aware, if you haven't looked at it for a while, what's there. It's a really nice system that Sarah's got organized in terms of anybody can submit an idea in there, and then we kind of move it through the process of getting it written, review it, check it, make sure we're happy with it, and then getting it actually scheduled and then posted. And then, so the second part is for the rest of you, how's this working out? What do you think of the content? Are there gaps or holes or observations you have about the content that's being created and what's being shared? Thoughts from everybody on that, and other thoughts on how you might want to be involved, could be involved, or anything we can do to improve our communication?
Well, I'll offer myself up to help write something or put something together. I'm kind of, I'm excited about the youth and innovation and civic engagement, and I'm all jazzed up on the Third Avenue site, and so I could talk about my experience with seed. So maybe we could tie that in with the writing competition or something to say, here's what I'm thinking about for what's next for Alaska. So I can offer that up. But I think what I'm looking for is, and maybe Trello is the place to do it, and I just need the kind of the prod to remember to go back there and look at it. But I just kind of need the ask to know, like, hey, here's what people are looking for, here's what could help. And then, having somebody to hold my feet to the flames a little bit, to give me a deadline and say, hey, here's what we're looking for by this time, so then I can try to prioritize it. Because I think that AKV3 could do a great job of sharing some of the innovation ecosystem building concepts and just sort of like raising general awareness for folks and doing some of that connecting and linking. And it just looks like putting together graphics and talking about it, and it doesn't have to be huge, could be small stuff. But I get excited about that. It's the stuff I really enjoy thinking about and noodling over. So happy to help. And I know we're coming up on time, and I'm taking a bunch of time right now. I just wanted to ask what's up with the gap this fall. And I've seen that mentioned, but how can we help fill?
Yeah. So briefly, the gap that I think you're referring to in my message is that we've lost all of the early fall ideation activities with the Arctic Innovation Competition moving to the spring. We've got this gap now that brings everybody back in the fall to school, and that's when we restart all the programs we put on hold. And right now, nothing is really scheduled until startup week in November. And we've got to figure out how to recharge the system in the fall. I think the discussion we had 2 weeks ago really has got my mental motors turning about how could we as a group actually help define the agenda for the entrepreneurial ecosystem that's coming fall, because all the students are coming back, all the entrepreneurship classes are going to be held. There's going to be the startup weekend, and maybe a startup week. We have the opportunity, if we want to kind of jump in front of all that and actually set the agenda of, what are the challenges that are out there? What are the opportunities to take this next Alaska and actually try and put that message out there? But more particularly, I'm thinking we could potentially lead the effort of developing a reverse pitch opportunity in the early fall to say, what are the challenges that matter in Alaska? Where are the needs? Where are the opportunities? Where are the questions that need to be answered? And get the fall started with something that brings some real to the work that could be done, so that we could actually try and incentivize, encourage some of the student class, the classes, the students, the entrepreneurs, so that they go into the fall maybe kind of jazzed up about the work that could be done, the ecosystem that they can engage in, so that when we go into startup weekend and startup week, we go into it with a bunch of folks that have already been revved up for that, because otherwise there's nothing going on right now. So again, another opportunity for us to jump into that space.
Yeah, I think we could, do some idea capture this summer, kind of have lots of conversations, start climbing the bumps and get people thinking about it, and doing awareness building. And then when people are coming back together and ready to get engaged this fall, we could do a buildup of here's how you actually link in, here's how we can work on these problems. And then we ramp that up to startup week and have people try and tackle some of those problems.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. All right. Well, I know we need to wrap up at this point. Is somebody on the computer, can you try and grab the chat file and email it to me? I can't get to it the way I'm hooked up right at the moment.
I can send that your way.
Okay, that'd be great. I've got the recording going. Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for diving in today. Any last loose ends before we close out for today? Okay, great. Thanks again for joining. I'll get the recording posted later today or tomorrow with and go over the notes. I appreciate Tracy jumping in and helping with some of that. And hope you all have a great week. I look forward to chatting soon.